The cowboy fought off wolves to save two Apache girls. The next day, their mother told him she would be his reward. Jack Harding, a lone cowboy, rode his horse along a dusty trail that wound between jagged rocks and scattered scrub. The wind carried the smell of dry earth and pine, but also something sharper, something that made him pause and tilt his head. He had spent years in these borderlands, and he had learned to listen to the land. It spoke in subtle ways, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of animals, the whispers of danger. Jack was not an ordinary cowboy. In this future world, where humans had spread to new frontiers, the wilderness had changed. Creatures once thought harmless had grown larger, faster, and smarter. Some were even enhanced with strange technology, either by human hands or by nature itself adapting to survive. Wolves with metallic eyes, birds with claws sharper than knives, and other creatures roamed freely, testing the limits of any human who dared venture outside the safety of villages. But Jack had a gift, the kind of quick thinking and courage that made him stand out among men and women alike. He had survived what others could not, and he knew the land better than anyone. As Jack moved forward, the wind carried another sound, high-pitched and panicked. His ears twitched. There was no mistaking it. It was the cry of children. Without hesitation, he urged his horse forward, moving faster over the rough terrain. The sun was low now, painting the world in gold and red, and shadows began to stretch across the rocks like long fingers. Jack crested a small ridge and saw them. Two young Apache girls, no older than 10 and 12, were trapped in a small clearing. Around them circled a pack of wolves, their fur dark and glinting strangely in the sunlight. Their eyes reflected a strange intelligence, almost as if they understood exactly what they were doing. The girls clutched each other, wide-eyed and trembling. One of them, the older girl, held a small wooden stick in front of her like a makeshift defense. Jack's heart raced, but he did not panic. Years of experience had taught him that fear could be the worst enemy. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small flare pistol, not to shoot at the wolves but to create a loud distraction. He fired it into the air. The flare hissed and popped, and the wolves paused, startled by the sudden bright light. The girls gasped, but Jack spoke to them in a calm voice. "Stay close to each other. Don't run. Just stay calm," he said, keeping his tone steady. His words carried authority, not harshness. The older girl nodded, squeezing her sister's hand tightly. The wolves circled again, but Jack had already thought ahead. He noticed a narrow ravine on the edge of the clearing. If he could drive the wolves toward it, they might hesitate to follow. He kicked his horse lightly and guided it around the clearing's edge, staying between the girls and the predators. The wolves growled softly, watching him, but did not attack. "Okay, follow me. Slowly and don't make sudden moves," Jack instructed. He gestured toward the ravine. The girls hesitated, fear clear on their faces, but something about Jack's calm confidence made them trust him. They began to step carefully, one after the other. Jack used his flare again, tossing it slightly to the side, and the wolves jumped back at the sudden light and sound. Step by step, he guided the girls toward the safer part of the clearing. When the oldest girl stumbled over a rock, Jack reached out and steadied her, whispering, "It's all right. You're okay, almost there." After what felt like hours but was only minutes, they reached the edge of the ravine. Jack lifted the youngest girl gently and helped her down the slope. The older girl followed, holding Jack's hand tightly. The wolves watched from the top of the clearing, but the uneven ground and Jack's careful movements kept them cautious. When all three were finally safe at the bottom, Jack let out a quiet sigh of relief. He glanced back and saw the wolves retreating slowly, circling one last time before disappearing into the trees. They were clever, but they were not invincible. Jack had outsmarted them without harming them, a trick that often earned him respect among those who knew him. The girls hugged each other, still trembling but beginning to calm down. Jack smiled, crouching to their level. "You're safe now," he said softly. Do you know where your home is?" The older girl nodded, pointing vaguely toward the west, where the low walls of a small settlement were barely visible against the hills. "Yes, we live there," she said in a small voice. "Good. I'll take you back," Jack replied. "But you need to stay close and you need to trust me." "Can you do that?" The girls nodded. They had seen many strangers in their lives, some kind and some dangerous, but something about Jack, the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he acted, made them feel safe. Jack mounted his horse again, and the girls followed carefully on foot. The journey back was tense but uneventful. Jack scanned the surroundings constantly, alert for any signs of more predators. But the land was quiet now, and for the first time in what felt like hours, he allowed himself to relax slightly. As the sun sank completely behind the hills, the settlement came into view. Small huts and tents were scattered across the land, and smoke curled from a few chimneys. People began to emerge, looking toward the trail as Jack approached. Some shouted in greeting, while others ran to meet the girls, relief evident on their faces. Jack dismounted and helped the girls forward. Parents and elders rushed to gather the children, asking questions and offering thanks. Jack stepped back, letting the reunion happen, his presence quiet but commanding. Finally, a woman approached him. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and full of gratitude. She was the girl's mother, Tala. She studied Jack for a moment, then spoke. "You saved them," she said simply. Her voice was calm but carried weight. "Not many men would have done what you did." Jack nodded humbly. "I just did what needed to be done," he said. "They're brave, too." They stayed calm and followed instructions. Tala's gaze softened slightly. "Yes, but bravery alone would not have been enough. You protected them. You made sure they were safe." Jack shrugged. "I'm just a man trying to survive in these lands." "Anyone would do the same." Tala studied him for a long moment, then nodded again. "Perhaps, but not everyone has your skill or courage. You have earned our respect today." Jack smiled faintly. He had faced many dangers in his life, but the gratitude of people who truly understood the wild meant more than any reward he could imagine. As night fell, Jack stayed a little longer in the village, sharing stories with the children and elders. The stars above shone brightly, untouched by city lights, and the wind whispered through the trees. In that quiet, rugged place, he felt a sense of belonging he had not known before. He knew the land would always be dangerous. There would be more wolves, more challenges, more tests of courage and wit. But for tonight, the girls were safe. Their mother was grateful, and Jack Harding had once again proven that humans, with their resourcefulness, bravery, and compassion, could stand strong, even against the wildest threats. And in that moment, beneath the endless sky, he realized something important. In a world filled with unknown dangers, humanity's greatest strength was not just survival. It was the courage to act, the mind to think, and the heart to protect others. The morning sun rose slowly over the rugged hills, bathing the Apache settlement in warm golden light. Jack Harding had spent the night in the village, sitting by the fire outside a small hut. The girls, Leela and Naya, had finally fallen asleep after the tension and fear of the previous day. Even in their slumber, their small hands were intertwined, a quiet comfort between them. Jack stirred as the first rays touched his face. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine, earth, and smoke from the village fires. He stretched and rubbed his eyes, thinking about the events of yesterday. It had been a dangerous encounter, but it had shown him something he had always known. Humans were capable of more than they realized when faced with the wild. He looked around and saw the village beginning to wake. Elders came out of their huts, children ran barefoot across the dirt paths, and the scent of bread and herbs drifted through the air. Jack felt a quiet warmth in his chest. These people had lived in harmony with the dangerous land for generations. They respected it, understood it, and survived because they had learned its secrets. And now, somehow, he was a part of that world, even if only for a short while. Tala, the girl's mother, appeared from one of the larger huts. She walked toward him with a calm, steady pace, her dark eyes thoughtful. Jack stood to greet her, tipping his hat slightly. "Good morning, Tala," he said. "How are the girls?" "They are safe," she replied, her voice soft but carrying a strength that reminded Jack of the mountains around them. "They slept well after yesterday. You gave them courage they did not know they had." Jack shrugged modestly. "They were brave. I just helped guide them." The real courage came from them. Tala's eyes lingered on him for a moment. "Perhaps, but you gave them more than guidance. You gave them protection when it was needed most. That is not something to be taken lightly." Jack nodded, feeling a quiet pride. He had saved many people before, but there was something different about this village. Here, survival was not just about skill. It was about trust, respect, and understanding the balance between humans and the wild. "Would you like to stay for breakfast?" Tala asked. "It is the least we can do to show our thanks." Jack smiled faintly. "I would like that." Inside the hut, the aroma of baked bread, roasted corn, and fresh herbs filled the air. Jack sat at a low wooden table while Tala prepared the food. The girls joined them, their faces bright with curiosity and gratitude. Jack noticed how their eyes followed his every move, as if they were studying him, learning from him. Over breakfast, Jack listened to the stories of the village. Tala spoke of the land, of the creatures that roamed the hills, and of the traditions that had kept her people safe for generations. Jack shared his own experiences, though he kept the more dangerous parts to himself, knowing that fear could easily unsettle the girls. "You have a way of thinking that is different from ours," Tala said thoughtfully. "You see possibilities that others do not. You are quick, clever, and brave. Our people do not often see such qualities in a single person." Jack looked down at his hands, feeling slightly embarrassed by the praise. "I just try to do what's right, that is all." "But that is what makes you different," Tala insisted. "Humans have survived for so long because of their courage and cleverness. You face the wild, and yet you do not give in to fear. That is a strength that cannot be taught, it must be shown." The girls, Leela and Naya, listened quietly, their eyes wide with admiration. Jack smiled at them. "You have that strength too," he said. "You followed instructions, stayed calm, and never gave up. That's more than most adults could do." After breakfast, Tala led Jack outside. The sun was higher now, and the village was alive with activity. People were preparing for the day, tending to crops, repairing huts, and caring for animals. Jack felt a sense of belonging he had rarely known. "I want you to understand something," Tala said, her voice serious. "Yesterday, you proved yourself not just to us, but to the land itself. You showed that humans, when they act with courage and respect, can thrive even in places that seem impossible to survive." Jack listened intently. He had always believed in human strength, but hearing it from someone who had lived in the wild all her life made it real in a way he had never felt before. "Would you like to see something?" Tala asked. She led him to the edge of the village, where a small path wound up into the hills. Jack followed, curious. They arrived at a high overlook, where the valley below stretched out in all directions. The sun illuminated the trees, rocks, and rivers, creating a patchwork of light and shadow. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the freshness of the air fill his lungs. "This land is alive," Tala said. "It has tests, dangers, and wonders. Those who understand it can thrive. Those who do not last long. Yesterday you passed one of its tests. That is why we honor you." Jack nodded slowly. He had faced many challenges in his life, but this felt different. Here, his actions had not only saved lives. They had earned respect, trust, and a place, even if temporary, among people who truly understood the value of courage and intelligence. Just then, Leela and Naya appeared, running up the path to meet them. They were carrying small baskets of herbs and flowers. The girls offered them to Jack shyly but with pride in their eyes. "For you," Leela said, "to thank you for keeping us safe." Jack accepted the baskets, touched by the gesture. "Thank you," he said. "I will treasure these." Tala watched the exchange, her expression thoughtful. "Your actions have changed more than just the girls," she said. "You have reminded our people of the strength humans carry, the strength to protect, to act wisely, and to face challenges without fear. That is the reward of courage, not gold or land." Jack looked out over the valley again. He understood what she meant. The wild was harsh, unforgiving, and full of surprises. But humans, with their courage, intelligence, and determination, could face it and survive. They could adapt, learn, and grow stronger with each challenge. As the day went on, Jack walked through the village, helping where he could. He assisted with repairs, carried water, and even helped teach the children some small lessons in tracking and observation. The villagers watched him with quiet admiration. He was not just a visitor, he was a symbol of what humans could achieve when they combined skill, courage, and respect for life. By midday, Tala approached him again. "Jack," she said, "I want you to know that your place here is not just because of what you did yesterday. It is because of what you represent. Humans have the power to inspire, to protect, and to survive. You have shown that power in action, and that is why we honor you." Jack nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He had never sought recognition or reward, but this acknowledgement felt meaningful. It was not about wealth or fame. It was about trust, respect, and being valued for who he was and what he could do. As the sun began to set, the village gathered for a small ceremony. It was simple but heartfelt. Children presented flowers, elders offered words of wisdom, and Tala placed a small, hand-woven bracelet on Jack's wrist, a symbol of gratitude, respect, and connection. Jack accepted the bracelet, touched by the gesture. He realized that in a world filled with danger and uncertainty, human courage, intelligence, and compassion were the greatest treasures of all. That night, as he sat by the fire with Leela and Naya asleep nearby, Jack reflected on the day. He had come to the village as a stranger, but he would leave having earned a place of trust and honor. The wild would always challenge him, but he now knew that humans could face any test if they acted with courage, wisdom, and heart. And as the stars filled the sky above, Jack Harding understood something profound. The true reward of humanity was not in what one could take, but in what one could give: protection, guidance, and hope. And in that, he had found his purpose. The morning air was crisp and cool as Jack Harding stepped out of the small hut that had become his temporary home in the Apache village. The sun was just beginning to rise, spilling golden light over the hills and valleys. Birds chirped, and the gentle rustle of leaves accompanied the distant sound of flowing water. The land was alive with energy, beautiful but full of hidden challenges. Jack had learned that even the most peaceful-looking terrain could be dangerous if one was not careful. Tala, the girl's mother, approached him quietly. Her steps were confident, yet light, as if she had walked this path for years and knew every stone and tree by heart. "Jack," she said softly, "today I want you to accompany the girls and me to the northern valley. There are herbs and plants that can help strengthen our people. The path is not easy, but it is safe enough if you remain cautious." Jack nodded, adjusting his hat against the rising sun. "I'll follow your lead," he said, "and I'll make sure the girls are safe." The girls, Leela and Naya, were already waiting, small baskets in hand. Their eyes sparkled with excitement and a hint of nervousness. They had spent the last day talking about what had happened, and though they were still shaken by the memory of the wolves, they felt safer with Jack around. As they set out, Tala led the way, moving with grace and precision. The girls followed closely, and Jack stayed at the side, scanning the surroundings and quietly observing the land. He had learned that survival here was about more than strength. It was about understanding the environment, reading the signs, and anticipating danger before it arrived. The first part of the trail was easy, winding through gentle hills and open meadows. Wildflowers swayed in the breeze, and the girls pointed out different plants and berries to Jack, who listened attentively. He admired their knowledge. The way they could distinguish useful herbs from ones that could make someone sick was remarkable. "See that plant there?" Leela asked, pointing to a small bush with bright red berries. "Those are good for energy. They help when we travel far." Jack crouched to examine it. "I see," he said, smiling. "You two know a lot about this land." Naya nodded eagerly. "Our mother taught us. She says knowing the land keeps us safe." Jack's gaze drifted over the hills. It was beautiful, yes, but he knew the wild had a way of testing even the most careful travelers. He kept an eye on the shadows, listened for unusual sounds, and observed the movement of birds and small animals. In these quiet ways, he felt the pulse of the land, like a warning system that only humans who truly paid attention could understand. As they continued, the terrain became steeper. Rocks jutted out, forming narrow paths, and the group had to climb carefully to avoid slipping. Jack led the girls by example, finding the safest footholds and sometimes holding their hands as they climbed. They began to trust him more with each step, learning that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act wisely despite it. "Look there," Tala said suddenly, pointing to a distant ridge. "That is where we will find the herbs we need, but the path ahead is tricky." "You must pay attention and stay alert," Jack nodded. "I will make sure we all get there safely." The next challenge came in the form of a shallow river crossing. Water rushed over smooth stones, reflecting the sunlight in dazzling patterns. The girls hesitated at the edge, unsure of how to cross without slipping. Jack examined the river carefully and found a line of larger, stable rocks that could serve as stepping stones. "Follow me," he instructed, placing one foot on the first rock. "Step carefully and hold my hand if you need to." One by one, the girls followed. Leela stepped first, her small hand in Jack's, trusting him completely. Naya followed, balancing carefully on the stones. Jack moved behind them, steadying them when the river threatened to push them off balance. The crossing took longer than expected, but eventually, all three reached the other side safely. The girls cheered softly, their relief clear in their smiles. Jack smiled too, feeling a quiet pride. It was not a victory over a predator, but a small triumph of intelligence, patience, and human ingenuity. After the river, the terrain grew even more challenging. Steep hills, dense shrubs, and hidden crevices demanded careful navigation. Jack demonstrated how to use natural markers, unique trees, unusual rocks, and animal tracks to guide their path. The girls watched closely, absorbing each lesson with wide eyes. "You see that ridge over there?" Jack said, pointing. "If we follow the line of rocks and trees, we can reach the herbs faster and avoid the steeper cliffs." Tala nodded approvingly. "You learn quickly. Humans have a way of observing things others might miss. That is why you are valuable, not just your strength but your mind." The girls seemed to understand this lesson too. They followed Jack's instructions carefully, moving more confidently than before. Jack noticed how quickly they adapted to the challenges, and he felt a sense of satisfaction. Humanity's greatest gift, he thought, was not just courage, but the ability to think, learn, and adapt in any situation. By midday, they reached a small clearing where the desired herbs grew in abundance. Leela and Naya eagerly began collecting them, carefully placing them in their baskets. Tala supervised, ensuring they picked the plants correctly and without harming the surrounding area. Jack helped too, learning to identify some of the herbs he had never seen before. As they worked, Tala spoke to Jack quietly. "You have shown more than skill today. You have shown patience, observation, and respect for this land. These are qualities that many humans forget in their rush to survive. But you understand." Jack felt humbled. "I have learned a lot from you and the girls. Survival here is not just about fighting or running. It's about knowing, watching, and thinking." Tala smiled. "Exactly, and that is why your presence is meaningful. You remind us that humans are not just strong. They are clever, careful, and capable of great respect for life. After gathering enough herbs, the group prepared to return to the village. The journey back was slower, as they carefully retraced their steps through the river crossing and up the rocky paths. Jack continued to guide the girls, pointing out landmarks and teaching them small tips about moving safely through the wilderness. On the way, they encountered a small group of wild animals, deer and rabbits grazing peacefully in the meadow. The girls stopped to watch, their eyes wide with wonder. Jack motioned for them to remain quiet and still. He explained that the wild could be beautiful as well as dangerous, and that observing it without disturbing it was a lesson in patience and respect. "You see," he whispered, "humans have the ability to understand the land. We can survive not by fighting everything but by thinking and observing." The girls nodded, absorbing the lesson. Leela whispered to Naya, "He's right. We can learn so much if we just pay attention." As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the hills, the village appeared in the distance. Jack felt a sense of relief and accomplishment. The journey had tested their patience, skill, and teamwork, but they had succeeded. Back in the village, Tala and the girls carefully sorted the herbs. The community gathered to see the results of the expedition, impressed by the careful work and the safe return of all three travelers. Elders praised Jack for his guidance, while the children watched him with admiration. Tala approached Jack once more, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have done more than we could have hoped," she said. "You have shown our people what humans are capable of when they act with wisdom, courage, and care. That is a rare gift." Jack smiled, feeling the weight of her words. He had come to this village as a stranger, facing danger and uncertainty. But through his actions, he had earned respect, trust, and a place among people who understood the true meaning of courage. That night, as the stars glittered above the village, Jack sat by the fire with Leela and Naya. They shared stories of the day's journey, laughed softly, and asked questions about his life outside the village. Jack answered patiently, sharing lessons and insights without fear or arrogance. He realized that human strength was not just in physical ability, but in wisdom, compassion, and the capacity to guide and protect others. And in this quiet, rugged village, he had found a place where those qualities were valued, honored, and celebrated. As sleep approached, Jack looked up at the sky. The stars seemed endless, a reminder of how vast and unpredictable the world could be, but he felt confident. Humans could face any challenge, adapt, and thrive, not through sheer strength alone, but through intelligence, courage, and heart. And as he drifted into sleep, Jack knew that the trials of the wild were only beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to prove that humans were truly remarkable. The morning air was heavy with a sense of tension. Jack Harding stood at the edge of the village, watching the hills in the distance. Something felt different today. The wind carried a strange scent, sharp and metallic, and the usual sounds of birds and animals were eerily quiet. Jack's instincts, honed over years in the wild, told him that this was no ordinary morning. Tala approached him, her expression serious. "Jack, you sense it too," she said. "There is something in the northern ridge. The animals are restless and the elders are uneasy. We must investigate." Jack nodded. "I'll come with you," he said, "and we'll take the girls with care." Leela and Naya looked up at him, curiosity mixed with concern. Jack smiled reassuringly. "We'll be careful," he said. "Remember what we learned: patience, observation, and teamwork." The small group moved quietly toward the northern ridge, the terrain becoming more rugged with every step. Rocky paths twisted around steep cliffs, and dense shrubs made it difficult to see far ahead. Jack stayed alert, scanning the hills for any sign of danger. As they climbed, they began to notice signs that something was amiss. Trees were bent in strange directions, as if pushed by large creatures. Small rocks and debris had been disturbed, leaving tracks that did not match the usual wildlife. Jack crouched to examine them closely. "These tracks are unusual," he said. "They're bigger than any wolf or deer, and they move in a pattern that suggests intelligence, like they know the land as well as we do." Tala frowned. "That is troubling. If the creatures have learned to move with such skill, we must be cautious." Jack nodded. "Agreed. We will need to use strategy, not just strength, to navigate this." The girls followed closely, holding Jack's hands when the terrain became too steep. He pointed out small landmarks to help them stay oriented and used natural markers like trees and rocks to create a path that minimized risk. The journey became a test of human ingenuity and awareness. As they neared a small clearing, they saw the source of the unease. A group of creatures, wolves larger and faster than any Jack had seen, were moving together in an organized manner. Their eyes glinted unnaturally, reflecting intelligence and calculation. They were not aggressive yet, but their presence was intimidating. Jack studied them carefully. "These creatures are not attacking us yet," he said softly. "That means they are testing us. We need to think, not rush. Observe their behavior and we can move safely around them." He led the group along a narrow path that curved around the clearing, keeping them low and hidden behind rocks and shrubs. The girls followed, trusting Jack completely. He whispered instructions, reminding them to stay quiet and to watch the animals' movements carefully. At one point, a smaller wolf stepped onto the path ahead of them. Jack froze, then slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a small mirror. He angled it to reflect sunlight toward the wolf, creating a harmless distraction. The wolf paused, then moved back toward the others. "See," Jack whispered, "sometimes thinking differently is more powerful than direct action. Humans have the ability to solve problems without fighting." The girls watched closely, absorbing the lesson. Naya whispered, "He's right. We don't always have to be strong. We can be clever too." After carefully maneuvering around the creatures, the group reached the northern ridge where the herbs and plants were located. The area was safe, but Jack knew they could not linger. He instructed Tala and the girls to gather the plants quickly, using efficient movements and teamwork. As they worked, Jack observed the creatures from a distance. They were intelligent, yes, but they were also predictable in their curiosity. Jack used his understanding of patterns and movement to plan a safe path back to the village. Once the baskets were full, Jack led the group along a winding route that kept them hidden from the creatures' view. He pointed out small diversions like fallen logs and shrubs to break their trail. His knowledge of the land and human ingenuity allowed them to move safely, despite the looming threat. "Almost there," he whispered, glancing back to ensure the creatures were not following. "Stay close and keep moving. Trust the path we've made." The group reached the village just as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The creatures remained on the ridge, unable to find a way to reach them. Jack had outsmarted them not through force but through careful observation, planning, and human ingenuity. The villagers gathered, relief and admiration clear in their faces. Tala approached Jack, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You have done more than protect us," she said. "You have shown our people that humans can face even the most intelligent and dangerous threats with cleverness and courage. That is a gift." Jack smiled quietly. "I only did what needed to be done. The wild tests all of us, and we must use our minds as well as our strength." Leela and Naya ran up, their faces bright. "You saved us again," Leela exclaimed. "We knew we could trust you." Jack ruffled their hair gently. "You both did well too. You stayed calm, observed the creatures, and followed instructions. That is just as important as bravery." That night, the village held a small gathering to honor the successful expedition. The elders spoke of the land and its challenges, praising Jack for his wisdom and courage. The children listened with wide eyes, learning that true strength was a combination of mind, heart, and action. Tala placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "You have earned a permanent place in our hearts," she said. Your bravery and intelligence have reminded us that humans are not only capable of survival, they are capable of greatness when they act with care and respect. Jack felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had faced a challenge far greater than he had anticipated, but through careful planning, observation, and trust in human abilities, he had succeeded. The wild could be dangerous, but it also offered opportunities to demonstrate ingenuity, courage, and the capacity to protect others. As the stars filled the sky above, Jack sat near the fire, reflecting on the day. The creatures on the ridge had been a reminder that danger often comes not only in force, but in intelligence and strategy. Humanity's strength lay in the ability to adapt, to observe, and to act wisely in the face of uncertainty. He looked at Leela and Naya, asleep nearby, and felt a profound sense of responsibility. Humans had the power to shape the world, not just survive in it. With courage, wisdom, and care, they could face any challenge the wild presented. And as he watched the village settle for the night, Jack Harding knew that the greatest tests were still ahead. The wild would continue to challenge them, but he was ready. Humans had always been survivors, thinkers, and protectors, and in this rugged land, they could thrive where others might falter. Jack smiled to himself, understanding that the true measure of humanity was not only in facing danger, but in the ability to outthink it, guide others, and preserve life through intelligence, courage, and compassion. The sun rose slowly over the village, spilling golden light. Across the hills and valleys, Jack Harding stood at the edge of the settlement, watching the children play and the villagers move about their morning routines. After the events on the northern ridge, he had become more than a visitor. He had become a part of this community, a symbol of human courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. Tala approached him, her expression calm yet serious. "Jack," she said, "today I want to formally recognize your place among us. Your actions have proven that humans can face danger, think quickly, and protect life with both strength and wisdom." Jack nodded humbly. "I never sought recognition," he said. "I only wanted to keep everyone safe." "But that is what makes your actions meaningful," Tala replied. "You act not for reward but for what is right. That is the mark of true courage." The villagers gathered in a small clearing, their faces filled with respect and admiration. Children held flowers and herbs while elders stood with solemn pride. Leela and Naya were at the front, smiling shyly but proudly. They had learned much from Jack, and their eyes shone with the same courage he had shown. Tala addressed the crowd. "Jack Harding came to our village as a stranger. He faced dangers that many of us would have feared, yet he acted with wisdom and bravery. He has guided us through challenges, taught our children, and reminded us of the true strength of humans. Today we honor him, not with wealth or land, but with trust, respect, and a permanent place in our community." Jack felt a lump in his throat. Words of honor and respect were rare in his life, and this recognition touched him deeply. He looked at the faces around him. People who had once seen him as a stranger now regarded him as one of their own. Tala stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have earned our trust, Jack, and with that trust comes a bond that is stronger than any gold or reward. You are one of us now." Jack smiled, a quiet sense of pride filling him. "Thank you," he said. "I am honored to be part of your community. I promise to continue protecting and learning with you." The ceremony concluded with the villagers presenting Jack with a hand-woven sash, embroidered with symbols representing courage, intelligence, and respect. Leela and Naya helped drape it across his shoulders, their small hands steady and proud. Jack accepted it with humility, feeling the weight not just of the fabric but of the meaning behind it. After the formal recognition, Tala led Jack to a quiet spot overlooking the valley. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of flowers, herbs, and earth. The land was peaceful, yet alive with the promise of challenges yet to come. "You have shown us that humans are not only survivors," Tala said softly. "They are thinkers, protectors, and teachers. You have reminded us of the power of courage and wisdom combined." Jack nodded, watching the sun rise higher. "I have learned from all of you as well. Your knowledge of the land, your respect for life, and your strength in community, these are lessons I will carry with me always." The girls joined them, holding baskets of herbs and flowers they had collected that morning. They presented them to Jack, their smiles bright and sincere. "For you," Leela said, "to show our thanks." Jack accepted the baskets, touched by the gesture. "Thank you," he said. "Your thoughtfulness is worth more than any treasure." As the day progressed, Jack helped the villagers with daily tasks. He repaired fences, carried water, and assisted in teaching the children small lessons about observation and problem-solving. Every action reinforced the message he had demonstrated during their adventures. Humans were capable not just of survival, but of leadership, guidance, and protection. In the afternoon, Tala called a council meeting. Elders, adults, and children gathered as Jack shared insights about tracking, observation, and cautious planning in the wilderness. He emphasized patience, intelligence, and teamwork, the qualities that had helped them navigate the threats of the land safely. The villagers listened intently, absorbing each lesson with respect and admiration. "You have taught us much," Tala said afterward. "Your presence has reminded our people that humans have a unique strength, not just in the body but in the mind and heart." Jack smiled. "We can face challenges together, learning from each other. That is how humans thrive." Evening arrived and the village gathered around a large fire. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and deep purple. Stars began to sparkle, casting a gentle light over the hills. Jack sat with Tala, Leela, and Naya, feeling a deep sense of belonging. "You have changed our village," Tala said softly, "not only by protecting us, but by teaching us what humans are capable of. You have reminded us that courage, intelligence, and compassion are stronger than any weapon or threat." Jack nodded, feeling the truth of her words. "And you have reminded me that humans are at their best when they work with others, respect life, and act with wisdom." The girls leaned against him, tired but happy. "We will never forget what you taught us," Naya whispered. Jack smiled, ruffling her hair gently. "I will never forget either. You have shown me the value of patience, trust, and learning from those around us. That is the strength that makes humans truly remarkable." Night settled over the village, quiet and peaceful. Jack looked out across the valley, reflecting on the journey he had taken. He had come as a stranger, faced dangerous creatures, navigated treacherous paths, and earned the trust of an entire community. More than that, he had witnessed the potential of humanity, courageous, intelligent, compassionate, and capable of thriving even in the most challenging environments. He realized that the true reward of humans was not in possessions, fame, or power. It was in their ability to protect others, to act with wisdom, and to build bonds of trust and respect. That was what made humans extraordinary, and Jack had lived it, taught it, and experienced it fully. As he lay down near the fire that night, listening to the gentle whispers of the wind and the soft breathing of the girls, Jack felt a deep sense of peace. He had earned his place in the village, not through force, but through courage, intelligence, and heart. He knew that the future would bring new challenges, but he was ready. Humans had survived for countless generations because they could think, adapt, and care for one another. And in this rugged, beautiful land, he had proven that once again. And so, under the vast, star-filled sky, Jack Harding understood the essence of humanity. Strength was not measured by muscle alone, but by the courage to face the unknown, the intelligence to solve problems, and the heart to protect and guide others. He smiled quietly to himself. Humans were extraordinary, and together they could face anything.